The stars had always been silent. For millions of years, Earth had looked up at the night sky and wondered if anyone else was out there. When humanity finally reached the stars, they found the answer. The galaxy was full of life, but much of that life was cruel, hungry, and always at war. They were not warriors. They were builders and farmers, artists and dreamers. Their world had been beautiful once. Blue forests stretched across their continents. Silver rivers flowed through valleys filled with song. Children played in meadows while their elders watched the twin moons rise. Then the Iron Dominion came. The Dominion was an empire built on conquest. They moved from system to system, taking what they wanted and destroying what they did not need. They had nothing the Dominion wanted except their planet, so the Dominion took it. They burned the blue forests. They poisoned the silver rivers. They killed anyone who resisted and enslaved the rest. But some escaped. Elder stood on the bridge of her damaged ship and watched the stars blur past. Behind her, what remained of her people drifted in a fleet of broken vessels. 47 ships. That was all that survived. 47 ships carrying the last of a species that once numbered in the billions. They had been running for 3 months. Their food was almost gone. Their fuel was running low. Many of their ships could not make another jump through hyperspace. If they did not find shelter soon, they would die in the cold darkness between stars. Was old. Her skin was pale gray, and her large dark eyes had seen too much death. She had been a teacher before the war. Now she was the leader of refugees with nowhere to go. Her counselor, approached her with a data pad. His face was grim. "We have received responses to our distress calls," he said. Turn to him and... The collective says they cannot help. They fear the Dominion will attack them if they take us in. Scrolled through the messages. The merchant guilds offered to buy our ships for scrap. They would give us enough credits to survive for perhaps a year, but we would have nowhere to live. What about the others? Silence. No one else answered. Closed her eyes. She had expected this. The galaxy was not kind to the weak. Every species looked out for itself. That was the way of things. "There is one more option," said quietly, "but I do not think we should consider it." "Tell me." "There is a young species on the far edge of the galaxy. They call themselves humans. They have only been traveling among the stars for 200 years. They are small and weak compared to the great powers. Why would we go to them?" Hesitated. "There are rumors about them, stories that spread through refugee camps and trading posts. They say humans are different." "Different how?" "They say humans help those in need, not for payment, not for power, just because they believe it is right." Shook his head. "I do not believe these stories. No species is that foolish, but we have no other choice." Looked at the star map on the main screen. Earth was far away. It would take everything they had to reach it. If the stories were lies, they would have wasted their last chance. But if the stories were true? "Set course for Earth," she said. The journey took 2 weeks. 3 more ships broke down along the way. They crowded together in the vessels that still worked, sharing what little food and water remained. Children cried from hunger. The sick grew weaker. Hope faded with each passing day. When they finally emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system, prepared herself for disappointment. She had sent a message ahead, a simple plea for shelter. She expected silence or rejection. Instead, something unexpected happened. On Earth, in a great hall filled with representatives from every nation, a woman named stood before the Interstellar Council. She was the director of Earth's refugee programs, a position that had never been very important until now. "You have all seen the message," she said. "They are asking for our help. They have lost everything. Their world is gone. Their people are dying. They have nowhere else to go." A man in a military uniform spoke up. "If we help them, we make enemies of the Iron Dominion. We are not strong enough to fight them." "Perhaps not," replied. But I did not join this council to turn away the desperate. I joined to make humanity something worth being. The debate lasted for hours. Some argued that the risk was too great. Others said that Earth did not have the resources. But in the end, something strange happened, something that would be remembered for centuries. The vote was unanimous. Every nation agreed to help. That night a message was sent to the fleet. It was short and simple. "You are welcome here. Help is coming, hold on." On her ship, Elder read the message 3 times. She did not believe it. She could not believe it. In all her years, no one had ever offered help without demanding something in return. "It must be a trick," Counselor said. "They will enslave us or sell us to the Dominion." "Perhaps," replied, but for the first time in months she felt something she had forgotten: hope. On Earth, a man named Park received his orders. He was a captain in Earth's space fleet, a calm and steady officer who had never lost a ship under his command. His superiors called him reliable. His crew called him fair. He called himself lucky. "You will lead the response mission," his admiral told him. "We are sending construction ships, supply vessels, and medical teams. Your job is to protect them." Studied the mission files. "We are sending architects. Doctor and her team. They will build shelters for the refugees." "And what about defense, if the Dominion comes looking for these people?" The admiral smiled grimly. "You will have 3 warships, the Sentinel, the Guardian, and the Resolve. I know it is not much." "It is enough," said. He did not know if that was true, but he would make it true. The fleet departed 3 days later. Dozens of ships filled with supplies, medicine, building materials, and volunteers. Thousands of humans who had signed up to help strangers they had never met. Doctor stood at the window of her ship, watching Earth grow smaller behind them. She was young for a lead architect, only 34 years old. But she had designed habitats on Mars and the moons of Jupiter. She knew how to build homes in hostile places. Her assistant, a young engineer named, joined her at the window. "Do you think we can really help them?" he asked. Looked at the blueprints spread across her desk. Massive design to recreate an alien atmosphere. Gardens and water systems and spaces for culture and community. It was the most ambitious project of her career. "If they need a home," she said quietly, "we will build them one worth living in." Far ahead in the cold darkness of space, they waited. They did not know what was coming. They had learned long ago that hope was dangerous. But the humans were on their way, and nothing in the galaxy would stop them. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace like a sunrise. Light flashed across the darkness, and suddenly the empty space around the ships was filled with vessels. The refugees watched from their windows with fear in their hearts. Elder stood on her bridge and counted the ships. 37. Some were large and slow, clearly built for carrying cargo. Others were small and fast, and 3 of them were warships, their hulls dark and sleek, weapons visible along their sides. "They brought soldiers," Counselor said. His voice was bitter. "I told you this was a trap." "We do not know that yet," replied, but her hands trembled as she watched the approaching fleet. A message came through their communication system, a calm male voice speaking in careful, translated words. "This is Captain Park of the Earth Response Fleet. We come in peace. We are here to help you. May I have permission to board your vessel and speak with your leader?" Shook his head. "Do not let him aboard. Once he sees how weak we are, he will take everything." But was tired of running. She was tired of fear. If the humans meant harm, then her people would die either way. But if they truly meant to help, she could not push them away. "Permission granted," she said into the communicator. An hour later, a small shuttle docked with ship. The airlock hissed open, and a human male stepped through. He was shorter than had expected. His skin was a warm brown color, and his dark hair was cut short. He wore a simple uniform with no decorations except a single badge on his chest. When he did something that surprised everyone watching. He placed his hands together in front of his chest and bowed deeply. It was a greeting, used to show respect to elders. Stared at him, "You know our customs." "I studied them on the journey here," said, straightening up. "I wanted to show proper respect." Stepped forward. "Pretty words, but words are easy. What do you want from us?" Looked at the counselor with steady eyes. "We want nothing from you. We are here to help." "No one helps for free." "Humans do." Turned back to. "Elder, I will not lie to you. The Iron Dominion is powerful and we are not. If they come here, we may not be able to stop them, but we will try. And while we try, we will build you a home." Felt tears forming in her large, dark eyes. She had lived too long and seen too much. She did not believe in kindness anymore. But this human looked at her without greed or cruelty. He looked at her like she mattered. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you risk your people for strangers?" Was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Because a long time ago, when we were young and foolish, humans did terrible things to each other. We let the weak suffer. We turned away from those who needed us. We learned from that. We decided to be better." He held out his hand to her. "Let us show you what we learned." Over the next few days, the human fleet went to work. Medical ships docked with the vessels and doctors came aboard. They treated the sick and the wounded without asking for payment. They gave food to the hungry and clean water to the thirsty. Doctor and her team began surveying a nearby moon. It was a barren place, gray and cold, with thin air and no life, but saw potential. "The gravity is good," she told her assistant. "The soil can be treated. With the right technology, we can build domes here. We can make this place livable." Looked at the empty landscape. "How long will it take?" 6 months for the first dome, maybe a year for a full settlement," smiled. "But we can start moving people in much sooner. Temporary shelters first, then permanent homes." While the engineers worked, the refugees slowly began to interact with the humans. At first, they were cautious. They had been betrayed too many times to trust easily, but the humans were patient. A young named was one of the first to approach the humans directly. Was barely an adult by standards, with pale gray skin and curious dark eyes. Unlike the older refugees, had not yet learned to fear everything. Was eating lunch near one of the survey sites when sat down beside him. The young alien stared at the human's food with obvious interest. "What is that?" asked. Looked at his sandwich. "It is food from Earth, bread and vegetables and something called cheese." He held it out. "Would you like to try?" Took a small bite. The alien's face twisted in confusion. "The texture is strange, but the taste is not bad." Laughed. "I can bring you more tomorrow, and maybe you can show me what food is like." That small moment of sharing became the first of many, and began spending time together, teaching each other words and customs. Other watched these interactions and slowly began to open up. But not everyone was ready to trust. Counselor watched the humans with suspicious eyes. He had lived through the destruction of his world. He had seen his family killed by the Dominion. He knew that power always corrupted, that kindness was always a mask for something darker. "They are studying us," he told Elder one night, "learning our weaknesses. When they have what they want, they will show their true nature." Sighed. "What do you think they want?" "I do not know yet, but I will find out." Began following the humans, watching their work, listening to their conversations. He waited for them to reveal their hidden purpose. But days passed, and he found nothing. The doctors treated patients and asked for nothing in return. The engineers built shelters and did not demand payment. The soldiers patrolled the area but never threatened or intimidated anyone. One evening, watched a human nurse caring for a sick child. The child was crying, and the nurse sang a soft song to calm her. When the child finally slept, the nurse tucked a blanket around her and smiled. There was no one watching except the nurse did not know she was being observed. She had no reason to perform kindness. She simply was kind. felt something crack inside his chest. It was the wall he had built around his heart, the armor he wore to protect himself from hope. Maybe he thought, maybe I was wrong. On the moon's surface, the first foundations were being laid. Doctor stood among the construction crews, checking measurements and adjusting plans. Captain joined her as the sun set behind the distant hills. "The sensors have picked up something strange," he said quietly. "Ships at the edge of the system. They are not ours." His face went pale. "The Dominion." "Possibly, we cannot be sure yet." Looked at the unfinished foundations. "How much time do you need?" "Months at least." "Then we will give you months." He put a hand on her shoulder. "Keep building, Doctor. No matter what happens, keep building." That night, aboard his ship, the Sentinel met with his officers. Lieutenant Minu, his tactical officer, displayed the sensor data on a large screen. "3 ships," Minu said. "Small, fast, probably scouts. They are watching us." "Can we drive them off?" "Easily, but if we attack them, we confirm that we are protecting the Dominion will send more ships." Nodded slowly. "Then we wait, we watch them watching us, and we prepare." He looked at his crew, at the young men and women who had volunteered for this mission. They knew the risks. They knew they might not go home, but none of them had hesitated. "We are not here to fight," he said. "We are here to protect. If the Dominion comes, we will meet them, and we will show them what it means to stand against Earth." The crew saluted. In their eyes saw no fear, only determination. Outside, the stars burned cold and distant. Somewhere in that darkness, enemies were gathering. But for now, the humans kept working. The domes would rise. They would have their home. And if anyone tried to stop them, they would learn that humanity was not as weak as it appeared. The moon had no name when the humans arrived. It was just a gray rock circling a gas giant, forgotten by the galaxy. But they would come to call it Haven, and the name would be remembered for generations. Construction began on a cold morning when the sun was just a bright dot in the black sky. Doctor stood at the center of what would become the primary dome, surrounded by hundreds of workers. Some were human. Others were who had volunteered to help build their new home. "Today we lay the first stones," announced. Her voice carried through the translation devices that all workers wore. "Today we begin something that has never been done before. 2 species working together, building a future." She knelt down and placed a metal plate into the foundation. The plate had words carved into it in both human and languages. It read, "We were strangers, now we are neighbors, built with hope, maintained with friendship." The workers cheered, then they got to work. The dome designs were unlike anything they had ever seen, and her team had studied every piece of information about the. They knew the color of the sky their people missed. They knew the temperature of the air they had breathed. They knew the smell of the forests they had lost. And they recreated all of it. The domes were massive half-spheres made of transparent material stronger than steel. Inside each dome, the atmosphere would be carefully controlled to match needs. Gardens would grow with plants from seeds the refugees had brought with them. Artificial lights would create sunsets in the colors of their lost world. "This is too much," Elder said when showed her the blueprints. "We cannot ask for such things." "You did not ask," replied with a gentle smile. "We offered. Your people lost everything. The least we can do is give you back some of what was taken." Touched the drawings with trembling fingers. There were homes with curved walls like the buildings of her childhood. There were gathering halls where her people could celebrate their traditions. There were schools where children could learn and play without fear. "Why do you care so much?" the elder asked. Thought for a moment before answering. "On Earth we have a saying, home is not just a place. Home is where you feel safe, where you are loved, where you belong." She took his hand gently. "We want to give that to you. Everyone deserves a home." The work continued day after day. Humans and labored side by side, learning each other's languages and customs. They shared meals during breaks. They told stories around small fires in the evening. Slowly, the barriers between them fell away. Found himself spending more and more time with. The young was a fast learner, quickly mastering the operation of human construction equipment. But more than that, was curious about everything. "Tell me about Earth," said one afternoon as they worked on a support beam. "What is it like?" Wiped sweat from his forehead. "It is beautiful. We have blue oceans that cover most of the planet, green forests and white mountains, cities filled with millions of people." "It sounds wonderful." "It is, but it was not always that way. A long time ago we nearly destroyed it. We polluted the air and water. We cut down the forests. We fought wars over resources," shook his head sadly. "We almost lost our home because of our own foolishness." Tilted their head in confusion. "But you still have it. You saved it." "Yes, we learned from our mistakes. We decided that some things are more important than power or profit. We decided that home is worth protecting," smiled at his friend. "That is why we are here now. Your home was taken from you, so we are helping you build a new one." As the weeks passed, the first dome neared completion. The frame was finished and workers began installing the atmospheric systems. Tests showed that the air inside would be perfect for lungs. The temperature would be exactly right. Even the humidity matched their lost. Doctor barely slept. She checked every system personally, refusing to accept any errors. Captain often found her working late into the night, surrounded by data and calculations. "You need rest," he told her one evening. "I will rest when it is done," she replied. "These people are counting on us. I will not let them down." Sat beside her and looked at the dome rising in the distance. "You know the Dominion scouts are still watching." Nodded. "I know. They will come eventually. They will try to stop us." "Then stop them." His voice was firm. "I do not care about politics or military strategy, Captain. I care about those families huddled in their broken ships, waiting for a place to call home. Give me time and I will give them that place." Studied her face. He saw determination there and something else, something he recognized because he felt it too. "You really believe in this," he said. "I believe that kindness is not weakness. I believe that helping others makes us stronger, not weaker. I believe that if we turn away from those in need, we become something we should not be." Met his eyes. "Do you believe that too, Captain?" Was quiet for a long moment, then he nodded. "I do, and I will make sure you get your time." He returned to his ship and called Lieutenant Minu to the bridge. "Double the patrols," he ordered. "I want to know the moment anything changes out there." Minu nodded. "Yes, sir. Do you think they will attack soon?" "I do not know, but when they come, we will be ready." The days grew tense. Everyone knew the scouts were watching. Everyone knew the Dominion would not let the escape forever, but still the work continued. The domes rose higher. The systems came online. The gardens began to grow. Elder walked through the first completed dome and wept. The air smelled like home. The light felt like the sun of her childhood. For a moment, she could close her eyes and pretend that nothing bad had ever happened. "It is perfect," she whispered too. "It is just the beginning," replied. "Wait until you see the others." But Counselor saw something else. He had been watching the human soldiers more closely than the builders. He had noticed the increased patrols, the whispered conversations, the worried glances toward the stars. He approached Captain on the landing platform one morning. "Something is wrong," said. "Tell me the truth." Hesitated. Then he nodded slowly. "The scouts have been joined by more ships. We believe a Dominion fleet is gathering at the edge of the system." Felt his stomach twist with fear. "How large?" "We do not know yet, but it will be larger than our patrol." "Then we should run. We should take the ships we have and flee before they arrive." Shook his head. "Your ships cannot run. Half of them would break down before you reached the next system. And even if you escaped, where would you go? Who else would help you? Had no answer. We will not abandon you, continued. Earth has made a promise, we will keep it. Even if it means dying. The captain was quiet for a moment. Then he said, sometimes the things worth doing are the hardest. We came here to help you. We will not leave just because it becomes dangerous. That night, deep in space beyond the moon's orbit, the Iron Dominion fleet finished gathering. 40 warships, each one larger and more powerful than anything the humans had. The fleet commander looked at the distant construction lights and smiled a cruel smile. Prepare the fleet, he ordered. Tomorrow we finish what we started, no survivors. The order was given. The ships powered their engines, and the darkness itself seemed to move toward the small moon called Haven. On the surface, the lights of the domes glowed like hope against the endless night. They slept peacefully for the first time in months, dreaming of a future they might finally have. They did not know that morning would bring war. The alarms woke everyone before dawn. Red lights flashed across the construction site and inside the ships. Soldiers ran to their stations. Civilians huddled together in fear. Captain Park stood on the bridge of the Sentinel and watched the enemy fleet emerge from hyperspace. 40 ships. The intelligence reports had been accurate. Each Dominion warship was twice the size of his own, bristling with weapons that could tear through human armor like paper. Contact, Lieutenant Menu reported, his voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. They are broadcasting a message. Let me hear it. A harsh voice filled the bridge. It spoke in the common galactic tongue, the translator converting it to words could understand. Human vessels, you are interfering with Dominion business. They are our property. Surrender them to us and you may leave this system alive. Refuse and you will be destroyed. Looked at his crew, young faces, some barely out of training. They had signed up to protect, not to die, but none of them looked away. None of them suggested surrender. Open a channel to Director on Earth, said. Appeared on the screen moments later. Behind her, could see the emergency council gathering. We see them, Captain said. Her voice was calm but tight. Reinforcements are being prepared, but they are at least 6 hours away. 6 hours, looked at the enemy fleet. That is a long time. Can you hold? Thought of the domes on the moon below, the families who had finally found hope, the promises humanity had made. We will hold, he said. Nodded, then I will give our response. Put me on the open channel. Signaled Menu, who connected the director to the fleet-wide broadcast. Every ship in the system, human and Dominion alike, would hear her words. Straightened her shoulders and spoke clearly. This is Director of the Earth Interstellar Council. To the Iron Dominion fleet, the people are under Earth's protection. They are not your property, they are not your prey. They are refugees who asked us for help and we answered. Her voice grew harder. You will not have them, you will not harm them. If you try, we will fight. This is your only warning. Leave now or face the consequences. The Dominion commander's laughter echoed through the channel. Consequences? You have 3 ships, we have 40. What consequences could you possibly threaten? Smiled coldly, you will find out. The channel closed, turned to his crew. Battle stations, all hands prepare for combat. The Sentinel, Guardian, and Resolve formed a triangle between the Dominion fleet and the moon. Behind them, the construction ships and supply vessels began evacuating to the far side of Haven. The refugees crowded into the completed dome, the only structure strong enough to survive bombardment. On the moon's surface, Engineer helped organize the evacuation. People ran in every direction, carrying children and possessions. Fear was everywhere, thick as smoke. Found near the dome entrance. Are we going to die? The young asked. Looked up at the sky. He could see the flashes of light as the fleets maneuvered into position. He should have been afraid. He was afraid, but he also felt something else. Pride. Maybe, he said honestly, but the humans up there are not going to let them hurt you without a fight. and neither am I. He handed a tool belt. Help me seal the emergency doors. If they cannot get in, they cannot hurt anyone inside. The battle began with a blinding flash. The Dominion fleet opened fire all at once, hundreds of weapons targeting the 3 human ships. The Sentinels' shields flared white as they absorbed the first volley. The ship shook violently, alarms screaming from every console. "Shields at 60%, Minu reported. "Return fire," commanded. "Target their lead ships. Show them we are not helpless." The human weapons were smaller but precise. Concentrated beams lanced through space, striking the Dominion vessels exactly where they were weakest. 2 enemy ships lost their forward shields. A third took damage to its engines. The Dominion commander had expected an easy victory. He was surprised. "All ships concentrate fire on the lead human vessel," he ordered. "Destroy it first." The Guardian moved to intercept, putting itself between the Sentinel and the incoming barrage. Its captain, a woman named, gave the order to hold position even as her shields collapsed and fire tore through her hull. "Guardian is taking heavy damage," Minu said. "They cannot survive much longer." "Tell Captain to fall back," ordered. But before the order could be transmitted, the Guardian launched everything it had. Missiles, torpedoes, beam weapons all fired at once in a desperate volley. The attack caught the Dominion off guard. 4 of their ships exploded. 3 more were crippled. Then the Guardian went dark, its systems failing as escape pods launched from its dying hull. "Guardian is down," Minu whispered. Closed his eyes for a moment. Had been his friend for 20 years, but there was no time to grieve. Continue the fight. Make her sacrifice mean something. The Sentinel and Resolve fought with everything they had. They used the asteroid field near the moon as cover, darting in and out of the rocks, striking the enemy and retreating before they could be hit. They deployed drone swarms that confused the Dominion targeting systems. They used tactics no other species had ever seen. But they were still outnumbered. The enemy was too many, too powerful. Lieutenant Minu saw an opportunity. One of the Dominion ships, the fleet commander's flagship, had moved ahead of the others. Its shields were weakened from an earlier strike. If they could hit it hard enough, they might cripple the enemy leadership. "Captain, I have a plan," Minu said, "but it is risky." "Tell me." "If I take a shuttle and approach from their blind side, I can get close enough to fire directly into their weapon systems. It will disable their main guns." "That is suicide." "Maybe, but if we do nothing, we all die anyway." Looked at the young officer. Minu was only 28 years old. He had his whole life ahead of him, but his eyes showed no doubt. "Go," said, "and come back alive. That is an order." Minu launched in a small attack shuttle, using the chaos of battle as cover. He flew through explosions and debris, dodging enemy fire by inches. The Dominion did not see him until it was too late. His shuttle dove straight at the flagship's weapon array. He fired every weapon he had, unloading missiles and energy beams into the vulnerable systems. The flagship's main guns exploded in a cascade of fire. Minu's shuttle was caught in the blast. It tumbled through space, smoking and damaged, its pilot unconscious from the impact. But the flagship was crippled. The Dominion fleet faltered. And then, like a miracle, reinforcements arrived. Dozens of human warships burst from hyperspace, their weapons already firing. Director had pushed the fleet to move faster than anyone thought possible. Earth had sent everything it could spare. The Dominion commander stared at the new arrivals in disbelief. His flagship was dead in space. His fleet was surrounded, and the humans kept coming, ship after ship after ship. "This is impossible," he growled. "They are supposed to be weak." On the Sentinel, allowed himself a small smile. "All ships, this is Captain Park. The reinforcements have arrived. Push them back. Show them what Earth is made of." The tide of battle turned. The Dominion fought hard, but they were outmaneuvered and outmatched. One by one, their ships fell or fled. On the moon's surface, Counselor watched the sky light up with explosions. He had expected to see human ships dying. Instead, he saw them winning. A Dominion landing craft had made it through the battle. Enemy soldiers were approaching the dome, weapons raised, picked up a fallen tool, a heavy metal bar, and ran to the dome entrance. Human soldiers were already there, forming a defensive line. One of them, a sergeant named, looked at in surprise. "Sir, you should get inside." No, stood beside the humans, his improvised weapon ready. "I am done running. If you fight for us, I fight with you." The enemy soldiers charged. The battle was brief but brutal. When it was over, stood among the defenders, breathing hard, his weapon stained with enemy blood. Clapped him on the shoulder, "You fight well." Looked at the humans around him. They had protected strangers with their lives. They had bled for people they did not know. "You are not what I expected," he said quietly. Grinned, "We get that a lot." In space, the last Dominion ships retreated into hyperspace. The battle was over. Haven was safe. On the Sentinel's bridge, a rescued Lieutenant Minu was brought in on a stretcher. He was injured but alive. Stood over him. "You disobeyed my order," said. "I told you to come back alive." Minu smiled weakly. "I did come back eventually." Laughed, a sound of pure relief. "Rest now, Lieutenant, you earned it." Outside, the stars were quiet again. The Dominion was gone, and the domes of Haven glowed bright against the darkness, a beacon of hope that would never be extinguished. The smoke cleared slowly. Wreckage from the battle drifted through space, pieces of ships that had been whole just hours before. Search and rescue teams worked through the debris, looking for survivors in escape pods and damaged vessels. They found many, some human, some Dominion. They rescued them all. Captain Park stood on the bridge of the Sentinel and surveyed the aftermath. His ship was damaged but functional. The Resolve had survived. The Guardian was gone, but most of her crew had escaped, and the reinforcement fleet now surrounded the moon like a protective wall. "The Dominion commander's ship is dead in space," Lieutenant Minu reported. "He was bandaged and sore but refused to leave the bridge. Shall we capture it?" Shook his head. "Let them limp away. Let them tell others what happened here." "Sir, we did not come here to conquer or destroy. We came to protect." Watched the crippled flagship drift toward the system's edge. When the Dominion tells this story, they will describe how they attacked defenseless refugees and found an army waiting. That story will spread, and maybe the next species that needs help will hear it. Maybe they will know that Earth answers. The surviving Dominion ships gathered their wounded and retreated into hyperspace. They did not look back. They would carry news of their defeat across the galaxy, and that news would change everything. 3 days later, a memorial service was held on the surface of Haven. Humans stood together under the transparent dome, beneath an artificial sky painted in the colors of sunset. They mourned those who had fallen. Elder spoke first. Her voice was quiet but carried to every corner of the gathering. "We came to Earth as strangers. We came with nothing but our grief and our fear. We expected to be turned away. Instead, you gave us shelter. You gave us hope. You gave us your lives." Tears fell from her dark eyes. "We will never forget the ones who died protecting us. Their names will be carved into the walls of every dome. Their stories will be told to every child born on this moon. They are not strangers anymore. They are family." Director, who had traveled from Earth for the ceremony, stepped forward next. "On Earth, we have a long history. Much of it is painful. We have known war and cruelty and hatred. We have failed each other many times." She looked out at the mixed crowd, human faces beside ones. "But we have also learned that the measure of a people is not in their failures. It is in how they respond to suffering. When they called for help, we answered. Not because it was easy, not because we would gain from it, but because it was right." Captain spoke last. He stood in his dress uniform, his face tired but proud. To my crew, to the soldiers who fought and the builders who worked, I say thank you. You showed the galaxy what humanity means. You showed them that we are not weak because we choose kindness. We are strong because of it. He paused, looking at the sky above. To those we lost, we say rest well. Your mission is complete. The people you protected are safe. The ceremony ended with a moment of silence. Then slowly, the crowd dispersed. There was still work to be done. The domes were completed over the following weeks. One by one, families moved out of their crowded ships and into real homes. Children ran through gardens filled with plants from their lost world. Elders sat by windows and watched the stars, no longer afraid of what might come from the darkness. Doctor walked through the finished primary dome with a satisfied smile. Every system worked perfectly. The air was right. The light was right. The temperature was right. She had promised to build them a home worth living in, and she had kept that promise. Found her near the central fountain, where water flowed in patterns that mimicked the rivers of the. It is beautiful, he said. It is not enough, replied. They lost a whole planet. This is just a small piece of what they had. But it is something. It is a beginning. Nodded slowly. Yes, a beginning. Joined them a moment later, wearing new clothes made from fabric that the refugees had finally been able to produce. The young alien looked healthier than had ever seen, with color in their gray skin and light in their dark eyes. My parents have chosen a home, said excitedly. It has windows that face the garden. My mother cried when she saw it. Good tears? Asked. The best tears. The three of them stood together and watched the sunset. The dome systems painted the sky in shades of purple and gold, replicating the evening colors of a world that no longer existed. Somewhere in the distance, someone was playing music. Children were laughing. Counselor approached Captain as the captain prepared to return to his ship. The counselor walked with a slight limp now, a souvenir from the battle at the dome entrance. Captain Park turned. Counselor, how can I help you? Was quiet for a moment, his face showing an emotion had not seen there before. Humility. I owe you an apology, said. When you first arrived, I did not trust you. I thought you were like every other powerful species. I thought you wanted something from us. That was understandable. You had been betrayed before. Yes, but I was wrong about you. Extended his hand in the human gesture of friendship. Thank you, Captain. Thank you for proving that not everyone in the galaxy is cruel. Took his hand and shook it firmly. Thank you for fighting beside us. That meant more than you know. Earth offered them more than just shelter. In the months that followed, a formal alliance was proposed. They would become full partners in human space exploration and defense, not as servants or subordinates but as equals. Elder accepted the offer without hesitation. We came to you with nothing, she said at the signing ceremony. You gave us everything. Now we give you our friendship, our loyalty, and our future. Whatever challenges lie ahead, we will face them together. The news spread across the galaxy. Traders carried stories of what had happened at Haven. Refugees in distant camps whispered about the humans who protected strangers. The Iron Dominion, humiliated and weakened, retreated to their core worlds and did not venture out. And then, 1 month after the battle, a new transmission arrived at Earth. Director read it in her office with Captain and Doctor present. The message came from a species called a people who lived near Dominion space. They were not. They had no connection to anyone on Earth. But they had heard the stories. We are in danger, the message read. The Iron Dominion has turned their attention to us. Our fleets are small. Our resources are limited. We have heard what you did for We are asking if you would consider helping us as well. We know we have no right to ask. We know we cannot offer much in return, but we have nowhere else to turn. Set down the message and looked at her companions. Another species asking for help, she said. Another people in need. The Dominion will not be happy, observed. The Dominion is already our enemy. That ship has sailed. Studied the star charts showing it was far away but not impossible to reach. If we help them, others will hear. More species will come asking for aid. Yes, agreed, and we will answer them, all of them. We cannot save everyone. No, but we can try, and every species we help becomes a friend. Every friend makes us stronger. One day, we will not be a small power at the edge of the galaxy. We will be a coalition of peoples who chose to stand together, smiled. That is how you build something that lasts. She picked up her communicator and opened a channel to the fleet. This is Director. We have received a request for assistance from the people. I am authorizing a response mission. Captain Park, you will lead the initial contact. Understood, Director. Doctor, begin preparing construction plans. If this goes well, they will need domes of their own. Yes, ma'am. Ended the call and looked out her window at the stars. Somewhere out there, billions of beings lived and died without hope. Some of them would never hear about Earth. Some would hear and not believe. But some would call for help, and when they did, humanity would answer. On Haven, they watched the human fleet prepare to depart for another mission. Elder stood with Counselor on a hillside overlooking the dome complex. The artificial sun was rising, casting warm light across the gardens and homes below. They are leaving again, said. They will always leave, replied. That is who they are. They do not stay still. They move toward those who need them. Do you think they will succeed? I think they will try, and I think that trying is what matters. Nodded slowly. He understood now what he had failed to see before. Humans were not powerful because of their ships or their weapons. They were powerful because they believed in something. They believed that helping others was worth any cost. They believed that kindness was strength. And because they believed, others began to believe too. The fleet departed Haven and jumped to hyperspace, carrying hope across the galaxy. Behind them, the domes glowed in the morning light. Inside those domes, children learned songs about the humans who saved them. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, a new species waited for rescue, not knowing that help was already on the way. This was humanity's gift to the galaxy. Not conquest, not domination. Just a hand reaching out in the dark saying, "You are not alone, we are here, and we will help." Always.